Endryd Haar, also known as the Riven Hound, was a loyalist member of the World Eaters Legion of the Legiones Astartes who would abandon his battle brothers to become a type of warrior known as a Black Shield. Haar was one of the earliest known recruits for the 12th Legion, being inducted into its ranks long before the Legion was known as either the World Eaters or even the Warhounds. The Riven Hound was also notable for being one of the few non-librarians of his legion to not be implanted with a butcher's nails, cranial implants that were designed to overstimulate the aggression centers of the brain, transforming those who underwent such psychosurgery into little more than frothing berserkers. Despite lacking the nails, Haar nonetheless displayed a level of aggression and general short-temperedness that was considered by some to be excessive, even by the standards of the Legiones Astartes. Haar was also known for being a physically imposing individual who was not only noted as being unusually large for a space marine, but also demonstrating an exceptionally high level of strength and physical toughness, making him an incredibly dangerous force upon the battlefield. Following the onset of the Horus Heresy, Haar, who at the time was on terra when he learned that his legion and primarch, Angron, had turned their backs upon the Imperium, would slaughter countless loyalists as he desperately sought to escape from those who sought to hunt him down for his legion's crimes. Despite spilling the blood of those loyal to the Emperor, Haar was not a traitor, still viewing himself as a faithful servant of the Emperor. Indeed, the Riven Hound, upon learning of Horus's betrayal, sought to hunt down the treasonous warmaster with the intent of claiming his skull or to die trying. Endryd Haar would then remove all traces of his former legion's heraldry and iconography from his armor, officially marking his transformation into a Black Shield. Over time, Haar would come to lead an entire host of Black Shields, drawing his recruits from a number of different legions, both loyalist and traitor alike. The Riven Hound would prove to be an extremely brutal and uncompromising commander, known to maim or even outright kill those who dared to question his orders. Despite ruling over his warband with an iron fist, a number of those Astartes under his command would begin to question his decisions more and more frequently due to the belief that Haar's desire to slay Horus would ultimately result in all the Black Shields under his command being killed, even if in truth Haar did indeed view the troops under his command as nothing more than disposable tools. Over time, the Riven Hound would draw the attention of Malcador the Sigillite, the regent of Terra, who sought to make use of both Haar's talents as well as his desire to slay the Warmaster. Eventually, Endryd Haar would make his way back to the Imperial throne world in order to make a stand against Horus's forces during the Siege of Terra. When the Sons of Horus attempted to breach the defenses of the Imperial Palace by tunneling underneath the Saturnine Gate, Endryd Haar would be a part of the many kill teams that were dispatched to counteract the traitor assault. During the course of the battle, the Riven Hound would face off against none other than Ezekiel Abaddon, the first captain of the Sons of Horus Legion, although Haar would ultimately be slain by the future despoiler. However, Abaddon's victory in their duel was not so easily claimed, for Haar was so resilient and powerful that it took over 7 separate kill strikes, which would normally fell a regular Astartes, to finally put the Black Shield down. As the loyalist death god Nathaniel Garrow charged into the fray, the Black Shield's massive frame would then collapse on top of Abaddon, pinning him to the ground and preventing him from escaping the melee, granting Garrow an opportunity to try and slay the traitor, although Abaddon would succeed in teleporting away to safety before Garrow could land the killing blow. Because of Haar's sheer size, strength and resilience, which as mentioned earlier were excessive even by the standards of a typical space marine, some have questioned as to whether the Riven Hound was truly derived from the gene line of Angron, or if he is, in fact, something else entirely. So what could be the truth regarding Endryd Haar? The first possibility is that Endryd Haar was in fact simply a normal space marine whose size and strength were merely the result of genetic variation. This would indeed appear to be the simplest explanation, for Haar was not the sole space marine to be documented as being unusually large. For example, Alexis Pollux, the first chapter master of the Crimson Fists, was himself described as being a giant of a man, as well as incredibly strong, able to wield a bulky power fist with the ease one might experience whilst swinging a sword. Even far into the 41st millennium, the size of Space Marines can still drastically vary between different individuals, such as with the Space Wolves Hagar the Mountain, who is not only far taller than most of his battle brothers, but also incredibly fat. By contrast, Maximian Voss, a sergeant of the Imperial Fists chapter seconded to the Death Watch, was noted to be considerably shorter than the average Astartes, standing no taller than a typical baseline human. As a result, it is more than reasonable to assume that the reason behind Haar's own prodigious size and strength was due to either his own genetics or some strange and unexpected quirk that occurred during the gene seed implantation process. Haar's heightened aggression can also be explained by the simple fact that, despite lacking the butcher's nails, the earliest recruits of the 12th Legion were said to have been hand-picked specifically for their ferocity, savagery, and hostile temperament. Another possibility regarding the sheer size and strength of Endryd Haar is that the Riven Hound underwent additional forms of genetic augmentation during his initiation. As mentioned earlier, Haar was himself one of the very first warriors to be inducted into the 12th Legion's Initiate Company prior to the onset of the Great Crusade. As such, it is potentially possible that the process that transformed Haar into an Astartes was subtly different compared to how it would become once the Great Crusade began in earnest, with such differences granting these earlier Marines a potentially greater resilience and strength in comparison to those that would come later, although there is admittedly little else to support such a possibility. The final major possibility regarding Endryd Haar is that he himself was not originally of the Legiones Astartes, but instead formerly a member of the Legiones Astartes, or as such beings were more commonly known, the Thunder Warriors. The Thunder Warriors, who were the first of the Emperor's mass-produced, genetically enhanced super soldiers, were known to be exceptionally potent warriors, boasting a size, strength and resilience which surpassed even that of the later Space Marines. In addition to their sheer physical prowess, the Thunder Warriors were known to be highly aggressive, even to the point that they would attack defenseless civilians and even children in order to satiate their destructive urges, making them the perfect weapon for the Emperor to utilize in subjugating the various techno-barbarian empires during the Terran unification wars. Not only are such traits demonstrated by the Thunder Warriors exhibited by Endryd Haar, but the Riven Hound, as mentioned within Horus Heresy Book 6, Retribution, is himself said to be the remnant of a lost age. The idea of Endryd Haar being a Thunder Warrior is also loosely supported within the audio drama Black Shield's The False War. When Haar and his followers discover that a Davinite priest named Unvacar was in fact a Khalidus assassin in disguise, the Riven Hound threatens to snap the assassin's neck unless they immediately revealed what they knew. In addition to stating that they were working for Malkador the Sigillite, the assassin would also reveal what he specifically knew of Haar himself, such as the fact that the Riven Hound lacked the butcher's nails. In addition, the assassin would utter the following cryptic message to the Black Shield.
Tell me, Hound, do you dream of thunder?
The choice of words used by the assassin, asking Endryd Haar if he dreams of thunder, could be a subtle hint towards the notion that the Riven Hound was indeed originally a member of the Legiones Astartes. Despite this somewhat circumstantial evidence, it would initially appear to be utterly impossible for a Thunder Warrior to have ever been inducted into one of the Space Marine legions, due to not only the fact that the Thunder Warriors would themselves be subjected to a cull at the hands of the Legio Custodes, forcing the survivors to flee and go into hiding, but also because the Thunder Warriors were themselves known to be highly unstable, resulting in these warriors developing a number of health problems, both physical and psychological in nature. However, there is additional evidence to support the notion that Endryd Haar is indeed a Thunder Warrior. when the Riven Hound was tortured by a Sons of Horus apothecary named Hardaker, as detailed within the audio drama The Broken Chain, it was revealed that he demonstrated a number of physical and surgical anomalies, which were considered both notable and unusual, even when compared to those found within other first-generation Astartes. Not only was Haar's musculoskeletal system much denser than that of a typical Space Marine, but the scarring surrounding the connector plugs for his armor suggested that they were installed at a much later point in time than usual. In addition, Endryd Haar also bore a tattoo of the Raptor Imperialis upon his arm, an icon that not only served as the Emperor's personal heraldry during the Terran Unification Wars, but one that is commonly associated with the Legiones Astartes. There is also the fact that Haar's parent legion, the World Eaters, were one of the few Space Marine legions to have ever interacted with the Thunder Warriors. During the earliest days of the Great Crusade, as detailed within Horus Heresy, Book 1, Betrayal, the 22nd Dracos Regiment of the Imperial Army would be dispatched to the prison colony of Cerberus after the asteroid had openly erupted into violent revolt. As Imperial forces moved to swiftly pacify these insurrectionists, it would be revealed, much to their horror, that a cadre of Thunder Warriors calling themselves the Endryd Haar were the ones that appeared to be orchestrating this revolt. Despite the bulk of the Legiones Astartes being already assigned to the first expeditionary fleets of the Great Crusade, the Emperor was able to send warriors from the 12th Legion to aid the Dracos Regiment in hopes of eliminating these final few Thunder Warriors. However, the Thunder Warriors would prove to be a far greater foe than any that the Legion had encountered up until that point. After 5 long, bloody hours, the asteroid would finally be brought back into compliance, although at a great cost, as for every Thunder Warrior that was brought down by Imperial forces, the Endryd Haar would inflict 5-fold the amount of casualties onto the 12th Legion. With this in mind, some have speculated that Haar himself may have originally been one of these insurrectionist Thunder Warriors, only to be taken prisoner and brought back to Terra by the 12th Legion, where he would be subjected to extensive psychological indoctrination and mental reprogramming, as well as any additional surgical augmentation required to stabilize or otherwise halt any genetic degradation inherent to the Thunder Warrior genome. While the evidence presented does indeed appear to further support the idea of Endryd Haar being a Thunder Warrior, there still exists a number of flaws with this particular hypothesis. The first of which is in regards to Haar's tattoo of the Raptor Imperialis. While the Raptor Imperialis is commonly associated with the Legiones Astartes, the emblem was not utilized by them exclusively, as there exist multiple Astartes who bear this symbol, either as a tattoo or emblazoned upon their armor, as the right to wear the Raptor Imperialis was often bestowed to those warriors who fought alongside the Emperor himself during the Terran Unification Wars. As such, given that Endryd Haar was also said to have fought during the Wars of Unification, it's not exactly shocking for him to have been awarded the right to bear it upon his person. As for the armor ports being surgically implanted within Haar's body much later than usual, seeing as how the Riven Hound was, as mentioned earlier, one of the very first Space Marines ever produced, or at least from an official standpoint, it's entirely possible that Haar could have undergone the gene seed implantation process long before the successful development of the Black Carapace, the organ that allows an Astartes to interface with their armor at a neurological level. While the geneticist Amar Astarte did develop a prototype of the Black Carapace for the Astartes project, it wouldn't be until after a series of refinements were made by a fellow scientist, Ezekiel Sedain, as shown within the novel The Great Work, that the Black Carapace would finally work as originally intended. Because of this, it's not unreasonable to assume that Haar, being a first-generation Space Marine, simply received the Black Carapace and by extension the connector ports for his power armor after the implant had been perfected by Sedain. And finally, as for the events of the Cerberus insurrection, not only did Caleb Hax, the praetor commander of the 12th Legion, claim that his forces had been ordered not to take prisoners, but by the time their insurrection took place, the 12th Legion had already been named as the Warhounds, with the Emperor himself bestowing the name to the Legion following the pacification of the Cephic hives, and would even be referred to as such after being dispatched to the Cerberus asteroid. As mentioned earlier, Endryd Haar, as shown within Horus Heresy Book 6, Retribution, was stated to have been inducted into the 12th Legion before they would ever become known as the Warhounds. In fact, according to the audio drama The Red Fife, the Riven Hound actually fought during the Cerberus insurrection and was even said to have single-handedly broken the spine of a Thunder Warrior in hand-to-hand combat. This in turn would appear to debunk any notion of Endryd Haar being a Thunder Warrior, or at the very least a member of the Dai Tar. While Malcador does mention that the renegade Thunder Warriors he fought against may have been Haar's brothers at some other point in time, the Riven Hound rebuked this claim, emphatically stating that the Dai Tar were not his brothers, though whether the Sigillite was using the term brother in regards to a shared genetic heritage between Endryd and the Dai Tar, or in reference to them being potential brothers in arms or brothers of circumstance, is up for debate. Whatever the truth may be, the legend of the Riven Hound is one that will be spoken of with awe for generations to come. What do you think? Leave a comment below, and thanks for watching!